Good evening, North Branford. It is the February episode, a few days late because of the blizzard of 26, which was bigger than the blizzard of 78, if you can believe it. But here we are, we've made it. We have a special guest tonight that's going to give us a little background on how the polls work. So before I introduce them, I'm just going to say a few things that I wanted to share. It is the open legislative season. I'm sure that if you have been seeing, if you get a newspaper, if you watch the evening local news, if you are on some sort of social media, you have seen that the legislative session has started. And so there's been bills put forward. It is also budget season up at the state capitol. And I just want to say that it is the best time to get involved with democracy. So due to the storm system, I was off for the past couple days. And so I was able to actually, instead of just putting written testimony in on some bills, I was actually able to testify live, but on Zoom. So I signed up to testify on Zoom because I wasn't able to go all the way to Hartford, and I was put in line. And it was a great experience. So the one thing I wanted to share about it was everybody else that was testifying, almost, not 100%, but most of the other people that were testifying were there testifying on behalf of a group. So CBIA, which is a business organization, testified. And the tenants union testified, and there were a whole host of other, this was for the housing committee, so a whole host of other organizations, real estate organizations were testifying, but not just me and you, the neighbors. Like it was me and maybe one or two other people that I noticed that were just there as citizens to testify. And I think what's really important to know is that the impact comes from the citizens, because the legislatures, as you learned last time from Mr. Della Camera, they're used to hearing from all of these organizations. They want to hear from you and me. And so I know that some of us are shy and we're afraid and we don't want to talk, but I can tell you it was such a human experience. There were mistakes made. There were people that were just there watching. It was a very nice experience. It wasn't scary at all once I got there and was participating. So I encourage you, if you do have a time, if you work from home and you can take 5 minutes to just keep an eye on a screen until it's your turn to go up, I encourage you to testify. And it doesn't even have to be something that lights you on fire. It could be just something that you want to say, you know, hey, I oppose that, and I just want you to know that I do. Because it really does matter. They really are listening. And I think the more that we get back involved and have our voices heard, the more that we feel like we can take ownership. So that's just my piece that I wanted to share tonight, and that I was able to do that. And so I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Marc Lillie, and he's going to tell us about the polls, because I think that's important for us to understand, especially on the federal level and some conversations that we're having here at the state and local level. So please take it away.
Thanks, Kara. Well, first of all, my name is Marc Lillie, and I work at the polls here in North Branford. Plus, I also help to admin a couple of Facebook pages. You may have heard of them, North Branford Community Pride and Straight Outta Northford. So that keeps me, all of this keeps me fairly busy. In conversation with people on and off Facebook, oftentimes I hear things that may not be 100% true or leave a lot of gaps in what happens during the polling process. And I wind up getting into these lengthy descriptions of what really goes on behind the scenes. So I thought this might be a good avenue to at least get some information out. I certainly don't have enough time to cover all of the things that go on. But I am certified by the state of Connecticut as what they call a moderator. And what that means is that I help to administer a polling location. Most of the time I've been in Jerome Harrison during votes that are held there, or I'll be at the town hall doing something behind the scenes like absentee ballots or early voting, things like that. So this gives me an opportunity to talk to you all about what really goes on. We'll start off with when to vote. We've got several votes coming up in this state. We're going to be busy. I'll describe the polling staff in the different roles that different people play. Absentee voting, we'll look into just a little bit, tell you about that. Early voting, now that the state has passed the law, we have up to 2 weeks prior to the actual election day to cast our ballots. There's a thing called same-day registration. One of the things that we're always told is at least if we can get a person's vote into the system when they come in. So if they wake up on election day, they've never registered before, they can actually register that same day. They still have to be vetted by the registrars, and it may take a couple of days for that vote to finally be tallied in, assuming they're eligible and everything. But we will try our darndest to make sure that that person is represented. We've got new tabulators last year and going forward. We'll talk a little bit about that and some of the capabilities. Moderator duties, the things that I wind up doing. You may be a little surprised at some of the things that we actually do behind the scenes. We'll talk about security and the steps that we take, some of them, the more obvious ones. And I'll end up with participation, which is really the crux of it in terms of how many of you actually go out to vote, and very, very important participation. As you'll see, like we've got the budget vote coming up in May. Last year we had a lot of participation. This year, we'll see. All right, so let's get into the presentation. So, all right, the primaries are going to be August 11th. And for a primary, I'll remind everybody, there are both Republican and Democratic primaries, presumably there'll be both. If you're a Republican, you can only vote in the Republican primary. If you're a Democrat, you can only vote in the Democrat primaries. There's been confusion. People have shown up and said, no, I want to vote in the other primary. You can't. If in advance, if you change your affiliation through the registrar's office, then you can. But every once in a while, somebody will come in and say, I know I'm X, but I want to vote in the Y primary, and unfortunately, we can't allow that. Election day we've got coming up November 3rd. There's early voting for that. That's two full weeks because it's a big election. Absentee ballots are sent out starting in October. And as I mentioned, the budget is in May. I'm hoping that people are engaged in the budget process and watching the town council meetings, because this is the time when the budgets start to get put together. By the time you go to vote for it, there's already a budget, so all you can do is say yes or no. Here's an opportunity to actually provide feedback into the budget process. Okay, next slide. So for poll workers, we have moderators, and they're kind of the guy who runs, or the lady who runs the operation. There's an assistant registrar on staff at the polling locations, and that person is there to help someone who's had an issue with their registration in one form or another, and to see if that could be resolved. They're in communication with the registrars back at Town Hall, and we try to expedite it and make sure that we can get their vote counted if it's appropriate. The official checkers are the people that you walk up to that check you out in their books. Usually at Jerome Harrison we have 2 sets of books. They're all organized by streets, and there's like A through M in one book and then N through Z in another book, and so you go to the appropriate line that has your address in it. The checkers, the books that they're working with, already have absentee ballots marked off, so those people can't vote again. It already has people who have done early voting marked off, and there's several other pieces of information in that book to make sure that the people coming in are in fact eligible to vote. And you've got a ballot clerk, and that person hands out the individual ballots one at a time once the person has gone through the official checker. The ballot clerk also, occasionally a ballot will get ruined or there'll be a bad mark on it or whatever. The ballot clerk can take the old ballot and make sure that it can't be used again and give you a new ballot so that you can then go out, fill that out, and submit it. And there's always a person around the actual tabulator, usually near the exit. That's where your ballot goes. It goes into a machine. We'll see a picture of it later. And the ballot can go in upside down, right side up, forwards, backwards. Doesn't make any difference. It reads it completely, and the machine will flip it around and make sure that the votes are counted. We'll talk a little bit more about the tabulator when we get to it. Next slide, please. Okay, so absentee voting. When you request an absentee vote online or in person, the first thing is you have to be eligible, which means you have to have registered as a voter. So it's absentee ballots aren't sent out willy-nilly to anyone who wants one. You ask for it officially, there's an online request, and assuming you're in our lists, then the absentee ballot will be sent out along with 2 envelopes. And the envelope is serialized, and the town clerk keeps track of every single ballot that's sent out. When you fill out the ballot, you then put your ballot into an envelope and seal it and sign it, and then you put it into the second envelope, and that's the one that goes into the post office or goes into the drop box on the side of Town Hall. When that comes back into the building, the town clerk looks up your serial number and checks it off. If a ballot comes in with no serial number or a serial number that she can't find, that ballot is not going to be counted. So again, there's checks and balances on that stuff pretty significantly. All of the absentee votes are held in a safe at Town Hall until, by law, we can't count them until after 8 p.m. on election night. So they put them all together, and then either they'll bring them to a room in Town Hall if they're going to count them there, or they'll bring them out to the actual districts, like out to Jerome Harrison or up to Stanley T. Williams, where some of the staff will count them and then feed them through the tabulator. Next slide. Early voting. So for an official like the November election, by law, the state of Connecticut has said we have 2 weeks of early voting all the way through. And there is 1 day off before Election Day, Monday. That's the only day that is not being allowed to do early voting. The early voting is held at Town Hall. We have 3 districts here in North Branford, and normally they're in 3 different locations. There's 2 different rooms in SGW and 1 in Jerome Harrison. Well, when we do it in Town Hall, we have the town council chambers, and that's really it. So we have different desks set up, District 1, District 2, District 3, so we can handle anybody coming in will be directed to the proper desk. Times for early voting are 10 to 6, except Tuesday and Thursdays on both of the 2 weeks, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I'll just mention things like this, the poll workers, myself included, but there's a lot of people that work on these things, they work straight through. They're there before 8 a.m., just like a regular job, and a lot of them are there till after 8 p.m. So those are long days, and early voting is probably the least difficult. The election day voting, you can be there for 24 hours, and I have been for 24 hours. So when people get their ballots for early voting, the ballots are sealed in a signed envelope, and they're counted on election day. Again, we can't count them early, state law. So we have to do what the state wants us to do. Next slide. Same day registration. So that's on election day only. It's performed, well, actually, it could be done on early voting as well. It's the same day registration itself is performed at town hall. So if someone comes into Jerome Harrison, they're not registered, they woke up in the morning and they really want to participate, great, we can take care of that. You need to go to town hall, talk to the registrars, and they'll walk you through the process. The ballots get cast in envelopes, and they're taken to the districts to be counted later on. Next slide, please. Okay, so just if you voted, you've seen a ballot. This happens to be one from Guilford because it was the best picture I could find, but it's just a typical ballot. They're all designed so that the tabulators can read them. And I'll just draw your attention to the bottom line of dots. The dots look pretty consistent on left and right side and along the top. But on the bottom, there's some larger dots and smaller dots. That's coding that the machine uses to determine whether it's an absentee ballot, whether it's an early vote, whether it's District 1, District 2, District 3. So all that information is contained on those because we keep them separate, even though eventually the numbers get aggregated. But we could tell, and if for some reason a District 2 ballot gets into a District 3 environment, it will be counted as a District 3. The machine knows enough to count it for the right district because of the coding that it has on that. Next slide, please. So the new tabulators they're still pretty straightforward, but they do a lot of nifty things behind the scenes. They are, contrary to popular opinion, not hooked to the internet, ever. So, but they are kept securely in the safe at Town Hall until we need them. They're in secured packages, and I'll show you how that works in a little bit later. So they're completely locked up and sealed until the moderator opens them up on election day and fires them up and gets them ready to count. We print out the totals in the beginning of the day, which obviously would be zeros, and those get stuck on the wall around the tabulator, and it gets put into some of the reports that we have to do, the moderator's handbook, which we'll talk about in a minute, so that we have a record of that ballot machine starting at 0 in the morning of the voting. And then at the end of the day, we print out the totals, and they get hung on the wall, and oftentimes political people will come in, sometimes people from the different parties will come in, sometimes reporters will come in, they want to see what the tally is, and we just point to the wall and say, you can read all the numbers for yourself. And it'll all be there for them to write down. We don't provide copies of it. We're not required to, and we don't. The tabulator will run without power for, I think, an hour to 2 hours. Plus, we have a battery backup that would run it for probably another 3 hours. So between the two, we'd get maybe a half day of voting almost, even if we lost power. But the point is, we wouldn't be in immediate danger. We could at least clear out everything and get the device moved to an area with power, or if power was going to come back on, we'd be all set. Next slide, please. Okay, so when you go to a district, the process is you would check in, you'd bring in an ID, not necessarily a license, but an ID. If you've registered online and you've never voted before, then at some point in the registration process, you need a picture ID. That's what everybody's asking for. Well, it's already been done. So if you've never voted before, no one has ever seen your picture ID if you're registered online for the first time. So in that case, you would need a picture ID to vote. But if you've registered, you voted a few times, you don't absolutely need a picture ID or a license. If you have it, that's fine, we'll take it. But we're required to ask for an ID, that's all. Once they find you in the book, make sure that you haven't done an absentee ballot or early voting, they will check you off in the book, and you'll get a ballot and a sleeve, a manila sleeve to put around it, especially if it's raining, because ballots don't like to get wet, or the machine doesn't like for the ballots to get wet. We have privacy booths set up with pens, so you can go and fill out the ballot to your choices. And then at the end, it gets taken over to the tabulator, usually towards the exit. The tabulator tender will, usually they'll be standing 5 to 10 feet away because they don't have any interest in your vote, and your vote is secret. But if you run into a problem, they're there to answer any questions that you might have. The most often one is, does it have to go in this way or that way? Doesn't make any difference. Upside down, right side up, backwards, forwards. Any way it goes in, it'll work. The tabulator will then tell you that maybe you have what we call an overvote. You voted for 2 people in the same office, which obviously won't work, or you haven't filled in anything. Believe it or not, people will put in blank ballots sometimes. We get a lot of, or not a lot, but we get some ballots in absentee voting where it comes back blank. They go through all the effort and it comes back blank. But anyway, and one of the things that not everybody realizes is that we have an IVS system which is designed for people who are blind or severely physically impaired or what have you. There's a PC, a laptop, and a printer, and it works with extra large print. It will speak. It will help someone who has some disabilities so that they can cast their ballot on their own as much as is humanly possible. Very few people use it. We do have it. It's a requirement. It's set up every single time. It's tested every single time, usually by me, or at least at Jerome Harrison. And I don't know that I've ever seen anyone use it in the 6 or 7 years that I've been doing this. And we also have curbside voting, and I'm surprised that's not taken advantage of. It's not for everybody. We don't want everybody just parking their cars out front, but if somebody is on crutches, if somebody needs a wheelchair or whatever, they're usually driven to the poll by somebody, and they could just park out front, and there's a number to call. There's a sign out there. There's a number to call, and it goes right into the polling station, and we'll send out people that will get their name and ID and go back in, make sure they're eligible, and bring out the ballots, and they fill it out, and then we will, once they put it in the envelope and seal it, we'll transport it back into the building and do that for them. So they don't have to get out of the car, they don't have to do anything at all. They are allowed to have a person in the family help them with that. That is taken, a few people use that each time. Probably not as many as I would necessarily expect, but curbside voting is available, and we're happy to do it. One other thing, there's dozens of examples of this, but just to give you an idea, when we send people out to the car, we are required to send 2 people out to the car of 2 different parties, just to make sure. I mean, it's, it may seem silly to us, I'm not going to change a vote, but we're required. There has to be 2 people, 2 different parties to kind of keep an eye on each other to keep us honest, if you will. and again, there's dozens of things like that that go on behind the scenes to help ensure the integrity of the vote. I cannot tell you how many times I've been impressed with the people that I've met doing this poll working and the amount of care and responsibility that they take to do this fairly. I mean, I've virtually never seen there's no political discussions, there's no animosity one way or the other. It's incredible. The only thing we have an interest in is getting your vote fairly into the system so that it's counted. That's it, whatever the vote is. And we take that, believe me, very seriously. You'll have to take my word for it, but it's true. All right, next slide, please. So what do I do? The moderator at each polling location supervises the operation. So I'm kind of like the manager, if you will, of the group. And we usually have, at Jerome Harrison, we would have 7 or 8 people, perhaps, in the different roles that we talked about earlier. So a moderator is actually one of the big things, although it doesn't come up in North Branford very often, but we're there to maintain order. And that's true of not just the poll people, but also people coming in. There are occasionally people that maybe are having a bad day, shall we say. We had one person come in that was insisting to vote even though he lived in Guilford. And you can't do that. We don't have a Guilford book, and we don't have a Guilford ballot. But he raised his voice a lot, and moderators needed to step in, as well as the police in that case. I'm required to keep a moderator's diary. It's a spiral notebook where I write down any pertinent fact. It can be an anomaly. It can be just a milestone. Anything at all that we want to, like if a person, let's say a person has moved within town, so the wrong address is on there. We deal with that, we fix it, we make changes in the book after checking with the registrars, and they check their online stuff. But once that's done, it gets into my book so that if anybody 2 months from now doing it, the state audits us occasionally. If they say, why was that person allowed to vote? We'll say, well, because they changed their address, they moved, and the registrar checked it out, and here's the date and time, and everything was taken care of. So that's what the moderator's diary is all about. The moderator's return is given to us by the state, and that is used to record all of the results and how many ballots we received initially. And by the way, a packet of ballots is assumed to be 100, but we have to count them because the printers sometimes put in an extra or leave one out. So we literally, every time we open a ballot package, we have to count it to make sure, because every single ballot gets accounted for. We can't throw out a ballot, even if it's spoiled, or somebody scribbles on it. We have to keep it, and we turn it back in as a spoiled ballot. So the number of ballots we got, the number of ballots we used, the number of ballots we spoiled, all that is logged in the moderator's diary. All of the so-called answers, if you will, all of the vote totals, all of the security tags, which are coming up very soon, that we use, the ones that we broke open to get into ballots, to get into the machine, to set it up in the morning, and security tags that we use to close up the packages at night and close up the tabulator and seal that again and bring it back to the town hall. All that information gets put into the moderator's return. It can take sometimes a half an hour or an hour well after the polls have closed just to fill out and make sure that everything balances, basically, that we can account for every single vote, every single ballot, everything that we've done for the entire day. We package, as I mentioned, and we seal all the ballots. They go into carriers, and the carriers have zippers on them, and we put seals in. You'll see those in a second. We put seals in them that have numbers on them. The numbers get written in the moderator's diary. And all of the packaging is wrapped with tamper-proof tape so that nobody can rip it open, take something out, put it back, reseal it, because the tape will be, it'll be visibly damaged. We secure the tabulator. That's going to go back to town hall, be locked up in the safe, but it's also presented to the registrars and town clerk so that they get back everything that we've distributed out. And everything gets transported to town hall. And again, it can be, depending upon the day, it can be 9 or 10 o'clock at night after the polls close at 8, or it can be midnight. Depends on how closing went, or all the numbers here. How many absentee ballots did we have to count? We have to wait till after 8. So, the clock is still ticking. Okay, next slide, please. So the security, those are examples of what we use. The one on the left is the tape, and that goes over any of the manila envelopes. It gets wrapped around in 2 different directions so that nobody can open that without disturbing the seal, and then we would know that it's been tampered with. The one on the right goes through things like zippers to make sure that any of the packages are sealed and can't be touched without them clipping that open. There's a number on it. I think you may be able to see it, hopefully, on the slide. There's a number on that red seal there, and those get written in the moderator's return so that the ones that are used at town hall to seal it initially are written in the return, and I can look them up and make sure that the seals that I get in that box are the right seals, that the tabulators haven't been messed with. And then when I reseal everything and it goes back to town hall, they can see that between Jerome Harrison or STW and town hall, that again, they haven't been messed with. That's some of the security. Okay, next slide. Now, this is the sad part. Federal participation, and these are averages, can be more, can be less, but federal participation runs about 80%, which is arguably, I guess, pretty good. Midterms, it drops to 60 or 70%. That's less good. For town elections, 20 to 30% determine who is going to run this town. That should scare people. I like the town council, but 20 to 30% making the decisions, that's not ideal. In the budget referendum, last year it was 20%. That was, I guess, good. It was a lot better than normal. Normally it runs 2 to 3%. 2 to 3% of the people come out to vote on the budget referendum. And for those who don't know, if you don't have at least 15% participation, it doesn't count, no matter what they vote. And that's part of the town charter. That's the law of the town. Good, bad, or indifferent, that's just the way it works. That's the rule. So if we get 2%, whatever anybody votes is not really relevant. I mean, they look at the numbers and they go, a few people voted against, a few people voted for. But we need more participation, and that means more work for us as poll workers, but that's okay. That's why we do it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. This was amazing. But I do have some questions for you. Is that okay?
I could tell you were making notes.
Yes. So overall, the first thing I want to put out there is that this is all volunteer.
Well, we are paid.
Oh, you are paid?
We are paid,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
I didn't realize that.
When I signed up initially, they said, would you like to volunteer? And I said, sure, I'm retired. But they do, in fact, pay you. So I mean,
they do pay you, okay.
It's not a career, and it's not very steady work, but we do get it compensated. And we get a lunch.
Okay, well, that's nice, because I was thinking it's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
To not be compensated for in some way.
Right. Plus, in some cases, like myself, I have to go to extra classes and things and get certified. I had to go to West Haven last time to get certified by the state. So yeah, that's a lot to it.
So there's a lot to talk about voting. There's been a lot of talk about voting for a long time. How does it make you feel with some of the talk that goes on around voting?
Well, I don't know. That's probably a difficult question. What bothers me or concerns me is I'll be in conversations with people and they'll say something that I know leaves out a huge chunk of what we do because they don't do it. And I understand. There's no way that people would know a quarter of what we just talked about unless you've done it or somebody's explained it to you. And so, it's disappointing when people say, well, they mail out, and I can only speak for North Branford and by extension maybe, I think, most of Connecticut. But, when they go, oh, they mail out absentee ballots to anyone. No, we don't. It's very, very tightly controlled.
I heard that when you were talking about the serial numbers and they have to match.
Every single one has a serial number. So, and it's matched when it comes back in. And I don't know that we've ever had one that didn't match, but I can assure you the town clerk would catch it. Lisa would.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my other question because with all the talk that goes around, I'm starting to understand that there's a view that when you register to vote, there's no processing that goes on before you come vote. So I get the sense and lens that some people think that you just fill out, I'm registering to vote, and nobody cares who you are, and then you just show up and vote. And so that's how there's underhanded things going on with voting. But there is a process.
There is a process.
Right?
Yeah, and again, I suppose, to those people, I can't speak for somebody in Delaware, but I know firsthand experience. We have two registrars, one Republican, one Democrat, and there is a very specific, they can look people up 16 ways to Sunday online. I mean, even Randy and I have gotten pretty good at doing that because of the Facebook pages. But you can tell where somebody lives. You can tell a lot about them. You can tell if they pay taxes. You can tell the registrars can tell if you're listed at DMV. And I'm sure there's databases at the state. They're informed anytime somebody dies. They also will send out letters periodically to people that haven't voted in a while or people they think might have passed away to see that whether they get responses back. And they can pen those people. If they don't get any response back, they can kind of gray them out. So they're there, we knew about them, but they're not responding. So if they turn up, then okay, you're here and your ID and you're still listed in this address. But if they don't show up for a while and they're grayed out, they can be taken off the rolls.
Okay. So there is a process and a little bit of checks and balance.
Yeah, a lot of checks and balances.
Because I have a story. I lived in Florida for about 8 years, and I moved to Florida around 2000, so during the Chad debacle.
Yeah.
And when I registered to vote in Fort Lauderdale, I got rejected the first time because in Florida on their sign-up sheet, they have this little checkbox at the bottom. And your brain does this to you, but when you read it for the first time, it reads like, I am not mentally competent to vote, but it really says I am mentally competent to vote. So they were telling me a lot of people don't check the box at first because when you read it fast the first time. So to me, in that experience, there is processing. Like, they're not just letting people register to vote and then show up to vote. There is double checking going on.
Right,
To see if you live in the area, to see if you're a citizen, to see if you are eligible to vote or not eligible for whatever reasons there may be.
Right. Keep in mind, I'm really on the periphery of that process. That's really the registrars, and maybe that would be a good
that would be another
follow-up, is to have the registrars, or one or more, come in and talk about what their process is behind the scenes.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you for the idea. But going back to voting day, if somebody has never voted before, you said that they show ID the first time, but then they don't need to show ID the second time?
They need to show an ID. Just if they have, let me be specific, if they've never voted before and never registered before, they need to go to town hall.
Okay.
Because then they'll need to do a quick vetting, and they'll do whatever they do to do what we call SDR, a same-day registration. On the other hand, you can register to vote online. The state has a portal. I've never been to it, but
it's very easy. That's how I changed my registration.
So if you sign up there, you've clearly never encountered a human, and you've never shown a picture ID.
Okay.
When you then go to vote, we'll see a notice. Your name will be on the list, but there'll be a special mark there that says you need to see a picture ID.
Oh,
because this is the first time this person has voted since registering online.
That's good to know.
And so, because we are not allowed to say, "Can I see your license?"
Okay.
Just, that's not allowed. It's, I mean, I doubt we'd go to jail for it, but that's, can we see your ID? But for those people, we need to see a picture ID. So we need your license or what have you, because that's the first time.
Okay.
When you register, when you go in to see, let's say, Lisa or Marlene, you'll hand them your license or whatever in the office, and they'll fill out everything, and you'll be all set. You'll get your license back. You've shown them the picture ID, and they'll look you up and whatever.
And you need to put that in your, so I'm assuming that in your moderator's journal, you need to write all the people that we have that we need to see ID, we saw their ID. Do you keep like a list of that?
Yeah, well, you could, such and such came in. It usually is only, I mean, North Branch is pretty small. There might be 2 people per election that have that particular situation.
Okay.
So, but those are the kinds of things, or, somebody tripped, or, well, we had one guy come in for a primary, and I mentioned Democrat is, you have to vote for the Democratic people and Republican for the Republicans. He came in and he said, "My boss told me to vote Republican, so I got to vote over here." And we said, "You're registered as a Democrat." He goes, "Well, I don't care. My boss told me I've got to vote Republican."
Oh.
That's not good.
That's not good.
He did not vote.
Yeah.
I got involved with that, but I felt bad because I don't think he really understood the difference.
Right.
But that's about as
interesting.
nefarious as North Branford gets.
Ooh. My other question was going to be with the tabulators. So the tabulators are not connected to the internet.
No.
Do they work sort of like Scantron machines? So, are they looking at the dots that are filled in? Is that in tabulating each candidate? That's how they.
Yeah, they're programmed by the company that we got them from, and they're programmed not by connecting it to the internet, but we have little USB drives, and you plug that in, and that programs it. So it teaches the machine what today's election is all about, where the dots are, what names are corresponding with what dots. what places like in the Board of Ed, you can vote for Republicans and Democrats, mix and match, and that's okay. Whereas if you did that for the president and you picked the Republican and Democratic candidate, that's not. So the machine knows all of that.
Okay.
And on top of that, this one will actually track. If you write Mickey Mouse on a write-in, it will actually take a picture of that and include that in its report. Now, obviously, it can't count it. It's not figuring out that it's Mickey Mouse. But that report goes back up to the registrars who, when they go through it, if most elections, write-in candidates aren't allowed. There just aren't any. But if there was an election where write-ins were allowed, they could then just scroll through, and if there was one that was eligible, they could add that and tabulate that right in. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's one of the things that this machine does that's better. And it also, the old machine, if you voted for the Republican and Democrat, the old machine, you just feed it in and that would be it. This machine, you feed it in, well, actually the old machine came back with a little tiny message that didn't really, we had to interpret it. This machine comes back with a whole screen that says, you know, you voted for 2 different people for the same office, and the ballot's sitting there, it spits it back out again. And then you have to say, I don't care, send it in the way it is, or you can take it out, go over to a privacy booth and make the correction. Or if you filled in both, you can't fix that. You can't erase.
Right.
So then you take it over to the ballot clerk and say, I'm sorry, I filled out the 2 here and I need another ballot. And she will take a magic marker and go down, they're usually she, don't mean to be sexist, but they'll take a magic marker and go down those little hash marks and just cover them up, which means that it's impossible for the machine to read that ballot.
Okay, so it was never counted.
So yeah, it wasn't counted anyway, but B, even if you found it lying on the floor and went to put it in, the machine wouldn't read it. It's been spoiled.
Okay.
And then it goes in a manila envelope, and at the end of the day, maybe there's 3 of them, and then it's sealed, and that security tape is put around it in both directions. And we say that there are 3 spoiled ballots in here. I sign it, and someone else signs it, so we've got 2 signatures, and then it's part of the pile that goes up to the registrars and town clerk that night.
Nice.
So every ballot is accounted. And at the end of the day, if 1,000 people have voted, we've used 1,000 ballots, and we can prove that. And the booklets have 1,000 tick marks, and we can prove that because we count those at the end of the night. How many are we looking for? 1,000, okay. And we used 1,000 ballots plus 3 spoiled. How many ballots do we have left? We verify that, and then all of that ties out with the election totals.
Oh, that's amazing. So there's lots of checks and balances.
Lots of checks and balances.
So this is a fear that I have. How do I know that my vote was tabulated if I voted early voting?
Well,
there was discussion that I was having with people. Are you putting those through at the beginning of the day, or do you wait until after 8 p.m. and do them with the absentee voting?
The early voting we can do on election day. We don't have to wait till 8.
Okay.
Your particular, what would prevent, well, it would be hard to do. The town clerk, let's say when I was doing it, well, no matter where, if I'm at town hall doing early voting, I get maybe a package of 200 ballots from the town clerk and usually a registrar. And they will bring it in, and then they sign a piece of paper that says, there's 200 here. And then Lisa will write, there's 200 here. And then I look at it, and we have a couple of people count them, the envelopes, and they'll go, oh, I got 200, oh, I got 200. So they'll sign, and I'll sign. Yeah, they said they had 200. We verified there are 200. So then we take them out of the envelopes. They're sealed and labeled, and you've signed it. And then we separated it into 2 piles. Now we know we've got 200 envelopes. We count these again. Are there 200? And when we're taking them out, we watch for doubles. Doesn't happen so much with early voting because they only get one ballot, but sometimes people will do absentee ballots where they'll each get one and they'll say, let's save on a stamp.
And put it
them
into one
and
envelope.
you
Can't do
that. But for early voting, so 200 here, everything checks, and then that's going to get fed into the machine, and the machine is keeping count. We know how many votes have gone through, and so it's going to increment by 200.
Okay.
If I guess if I was after you, what would happen would be I'd have to go through every pile, because I don't know which pile you're in, and find the one that has your name on it.
Okay.
Pull it out and hide it. But that would have to be after we've counted 200 here, but now we've only got 199 here, so something would be wrong.
Okay.
And immediately we'd have a problem, and we'd stop everything and try to find out. So it's, there's an audit trail,
but you're doing counts and stuff.
We're doing
the
counts
same.
on everything.
Yeah.
We count everything before we do it.
That's great. Okay.
Before,
Well,
during,
I feel
and after.
confident. Yeah.
Good, yeah. Plus, I had a guy a couple of elections ago say, but you're going to know how I voted. And I said, well, how? He said, well, if I sign this, and then you open it up and you look, you're going to see how I voted. I looked straight at him and I said, I don't care. And I really don't. It's a trifold. When you do those, it's a trifold into the envelope. So when we take them out, we slit the envelope, we take it out as a trifold, and it stays folded. And so we've got a pile of them
And those
here.
don't have names on them.
And
It's
those
just
don't
the
have any
envelope.
names. So, if he's the 89th, then it would, I guess, be the 89th here. But, and again, this is where people not understanding the process, and it's so detailed, but it seems so familiar to us. Part of the process, we separate them out and count them, but then we shuffle them.
Oh.
So even if we could count cards and, well, he's the 89th one, we're sure to get it that way, we shuffle them, and then we unfold them, and then they go through the machine. So, it's the detail, the level of detail. And again, I'll give a shout out. The poll workers, the level of responsibility, I
so
was
high.
stunned.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nobody complains. We're there oftentimes 12, 13, 14 hours. Sometimes it's deadly boring. We've done early voting. One Saturday, we had, I think, 6 people on staff. We had 5 people show up to vote.
Wow.
It was a Saturday. That's not a lot of fun. Everybody's there on their phones.
Yeah. Waiting. Wow. Yeah, that's not fun. And I'm glad that you're being paid. It's not just volunteer, but it's not fun to sit there all day for no reason.
Well,
there is a reason. Voting is very important, but
I have said this to people, and they think I'm nuts, because I could be, but I don't know what it is. But I and to all the world, I love doing it. And I guess you'd have to be either crazy or like doing it. I just get the biggest kick. I come home after sometimes 24 hours. The 2020 or 2024 election, I woke up at 4, got to the poll at 5. I pulled into my driveway 3:45 the next day.
oh my goodness.
So it's literally.
Thank you for all your service. It's great.
But I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
But I love it. I don't know why.
It's very important. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So I feel very secure about the integrity of the elections in knowing more about this. This is great.
If anybody wants to join us, we are always looking for, I don't do the hiring, but if you contact the registrars, if you'd like to see what goes on. A lot of the people that are critics, that's my go-to thing is, you think this, you think that, why don't you come and work with us? And then you'll see exactly what happens. And, I never hear from them again. Yeah. But if anybody thinks that they might like to do this, I'm sure Lisa and Marlene would be happy to entertain the idea.
Thank you so much. And I have learned, because I was on the ballot the last election, and I went out and did some door knocking. And, my partner and I that were walking around doing the door knocking, we realized, there's a lot of people that don't vote. They just don't vote, and they don't care to vote. And I understand that we're busy with our lives, and we want to let other people, manage other stuff for us that's not as critical. But living in this place, doing this experiment, the whole point is to be involved and to vote. And it's free, right?
Right.
It's free for people to go out and vote and meet your neighbors and support everybody.
And arguably, leaving budgets aside for the moment, arguably the absolute most important election we have
is this one,
the
local one.
Is the local one, and that's the least attended.
Yeah, I know.
So,
I don't know. What are your thoughts, people? Reach out to the Community Lens and let us know. Thank you so much for coming in.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Do you have any last words? Do you want anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for watching our presentation tonight. I hope you learned something. I hope it generates some conversation. And until next month, have a great March.
Hi, my name is Megan, and I'm the owner of Get Organized with Megan Rose. I specialize in helping people create organized, stress-free homes through my services, which include decluttering and organizing, donation pickups, and daily chores such as laundry, dishes, and tidying up. I understand that inviting someone into your home can feel overwhelming, and many people feel hesitant or embarrassed. But I want you to know my services are 100% judgment-free. I'm here to help, not judge. In addition to my organizing work, I'm also the administrator for our town's free page, where I donate many of my clients' unwanted items to help others in the community. Giving back has been an important part of my business since the very beginning. I've lived in North Branford for 11 years with my boys, and I truly love being part of this community. Right now, I'm running a giveaway for 1 free hour of my decluttering service. Everyone who enters from town will receive $15 off their next session. Be sure to check out my Facebook page, Get Organized with Megan Rose, to learn more about my services. I hope to hear from you soon.